Hi, I'm Lyle Stevick, and this is the third video in my series on how to make a 3D printed hand drum. This video will be for the bottom part of the drum body. So I've opened FreeCAD, and I have my measurement for the first arc on the drum body bottom, and I go into Sketch in the XZ plane, but this first arc isn't going to come all the way to the x-axis. So in order to know exactly where, in order to define it, what I want to do is go to my last drawing and find out what the radius of that arc is. So I go into that drawing and I click on Constrain Radius, which overspecifies the sketch and gives me an error message, but it also shows me the radius. And so then I write that down, clear the error message, and go back in to my new drawing where I'm going to start with a sketch. Start with an arc with the center point on the x-axis, and in order to define that arc, instead of using an endpoint, I'm going to use the radius. And here's the reason I'm putting this arc in the middle of the drawing there. On the x-axis, I actually want to start with the bolt flange. So the body of the drum comes out a little bit in order to leave room for the bolt to go through that flange. So now I define both of these using the radius that I just measured. And then I connect the two with a line. Now, the bolts are not straight up and down. They're at an angle of about 8 degrees off center. So the line in between these two arcs, I'm going to set at -8 degrees. In my fourth video, which will be next, I'll show all the details of the bolt flange. Now, sometimes when you do an operation, it turns that little icon in the upper right-hand corner, and if your drawing just disappears, look at that icon, and if it's not aimed straight towards the front, then you just click on front and it changes back to where it should be. Here I'm defining the height of the bolt flange as 18 millimeters. And the distance from the z-axis about 5 millimeters or almost 5 millimeters further than the other arc. So that'll give me an extra almost 5 millimeters thickness on the flange, which is what has all the stress on it as I tighten the bolts. Now you'll note that when I click on the angle for this, it becomes a fully constrained drawing. And then from there, I follow the same technique that I used for drawing the drum body top. I draw construction lines through both the center point and the end point of the last arc, and then I put the next arc on that construction line. And then as soon as I define how far the new center point is from the z-axis, then I delete the construction line. So here I've drawn the construction line through the center point and the end point, and then I've defined as the end point is on that construction line. So all three, the end point and both center points are on that line, and what that does is it gives me a smooth curve between the two arcs. So my first curve is going to turn back a little bit sharply And then my second arc is going to be a long sweeping curve. And then my fourth arc will be kind of flare out for the very end of the drum body. And like the drum body top, I didn't speed up this part of the video, even though I could have, because I want you to be able to focus in really closely on what all the numbers and all the clicks are. Because this is the real heart of making a drum, is defining the shape of the drum body. Even a small difference in drum shape, in the shape of the body, will cause a change in the sound of the drum. So here's the long sweeping curve that I'm going to make. And also note, as I'm toggling in and out of the construction line mode, if I forget to do that, let's say on this arc here, if I drew this as a construction line, I can always click on the arc and then toggle that arc back into a normal line. So I had to zoom way out to do this arc. Now I can zoom back in when after I get the construction line done, I can zoom back in, and what I'm drawing here is the outer wall. So after I finish this next arc, I'm going to go over 5.4 millimeters, which will give me the thickness of the wall, and then draw the exact same curves going along the inner wall all the way to the very end of that. And the last curve, I'll stop short and do the details a little notch where the two drum body pieces fit together so that they center on each other when you tighten it. So here I'm defining how far that center point is from the z-axis. And now I delete the construction line, and without moving anything, this is really important, don't move anything, define how far it is, how far the center point is from the x-axis, and then how far the end point is to the z-axis. And that gives me a fully constrained sketch. And now I zoom in a little bit and I draw the line that gives me the thickness of the drum wall. Now the technique for drawing the inner wall is the same technique that I used for the drum body top. I put the center point kind of close to the other one and then define it as horizontally constrained to it, and then define it as 5.4 millimeters from the outer wall center point. And then lastly, I horizontally constrain the two endpoints of the arcs. Now I repeat this process all the way to the last arc there, and then I put in that notch. One of the things I'm going to show at the end of this video is how to merge two drawings, because when I draw the drum body top and then the drum body bottom on two separate drawings, well, then I have to make sure that they're in proportion to each other. And if they're not in proportion to each other, well, then I have to redraw one of them. And that's actually what I did. This one, on the first drawing, I made it about 50 millimeters taller than this drawing. So it was about 250 millimeters tall. And when I merged the two and looked at them next to each other, I thought, no, that's not the right proportion. So I drew this whole thing over. So that's my third arc. And then I have one final arc. So the drum in total has 7 arcs, since where they join, that's the same arc. And on the smaller drum that I have, the body is one piece, because my smallest drum is actually, I think, total about 200 or so millimeters tall. And that drum body is just a series of 7 arcs. Okay, now I just horizontally constrained that to the wrong point and then undid it. That's an important thing with FreeCAD. Anytime you do something that's like, oh wait, I didn't mean to do that, just go into Edit and then Undo. Now here I'm going to draw a line on the X-axis, and again, it gives me an error message because it over constrains. So I delete the horizontal constraint and then just delete the error message, and I'm back in business. Now the notch that I'm making on this drum is also, or this part is also 45 degrees, but if you look close at the measurements, it's actually a 0.5 millimeter bigger. So technically that should leave me a 0.5 millimeter gap, but when you print, or actually when I print with my setup, the lines mush out just a little bit, and so that's why I give that extra 0.5 millimeter. Now here I've closed it and rotated, and this is what the bottom half of the drum body looks like without the bolt. Now I want to check the proportion of the drum body bottom to the drum body top. So I'm going to go into File, Merge Project, and select my last version of the body top. And then click on it and change the position. And I like the proportions here. My earlier version, the bottom was about 50 millimeters longer and it looked out of proportion, so I redrew it. But I like this one, so I'm going to go forward on the bolt flange. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video.